Coming back home that morning felt like stepping into a surreal nightmare. One that didn't quite register as real until I stood inside the apartment. I wasn't just physically drained from the chaos of the previous night. I was emotionally shattered, overwhelmed by the crushing awareness that nothing in my life would ever be the same. The place Michael and I had once filled with laughter, love, and quiet routines now felt unrecognizable. What was once a comforting haven had turned into something hollow, unfamiliar, and cold. The warmth we'd built had vanished, and so had all traces of him. His shirts no longer hung in the closet. The familiar scent that clung to his side of the bed was gone. The bathroom shelves were stripped of the small, ordinary things that used to mark his presence. His razor, cologne, the hair gel he liked. Even the framed photographs that once lined the hallway and bedroom, capturing smiles and travels and anniversaries, had disappeared. I stood there at the threshold, my fingers tightening around the strap of my bag, as though holding on to it could somehow keep me tethered to the life that had just slipped through my fingers. Putting these words to paper feels less like a therapeutic exercise and more like a confession of a deep moral failing. And perhaps that's what this is, a raw, painful admission of the damage I've caused. I know there's no justifying what I did. I don't expect understanding. I don't ask for pity. What I did was inexcusable, and the shame I carry is something I will wear every day moving forward. I destroyed something sacred, something we had built together with time, trust, and love, and I accept that I alone bear the blame. My therapist, Dr. Sarah, gently urged me to write everything out, not for forgiveness, but to confront my actions honestly and stop hiding behind silence. So here I am, trying to pick through the wreckage and understand how I ended up here. Michael and I spent 3 beautiful years together. They weren't perfect, but they were filled with warmth, understanding, and a steady kind of joy that felt rare. We were only days away from saying our vows. The wedding arrangements were nearly complete. Venue secured, flowers ordered, guest list finalized. Everything was in motion. Everything was supposed to be perfect. And then something inside me began to unravel. Maybe it was the pressure, maybe it was fear, or maybe a deep, lingering belief that I didn't deserve the kind of love Michael gave me so freely. While I should have been brimming with anticipation, I was drowning in anxiety. The smallest decisions felt monumental. Every phone call with my mother about seating charts, every text from the planner about color palettes, every reminder about timelines, they all started to blur together into an overwhelming noise I couldn't escape. And through it all, Michael remained grounded, as he always did. Calm, reassuring, focused only on making sure I felt okay. He never asked for much, just 2 simple things: that we skip the extravagant bachelor and bachelorette parties, and that he be allowed to wear a classic tuxedo. That was it. Everything else he left up to me. But even those minor wishes began to feel like invisible chains, pressing on my chest. Instead of talking to him, opening up, letting him in, I pushed my fears down, hid them, pretended I was fine. But I wasn't. And in that fragile, panicked state, I made a decision that shattered everything. I told myself I needed one last night to breathe, to feel unburdened, to remember who I was before becoming someone's wife. It was a lie I wrapped around my guilt to make it feel justified. And so, against Michael's only request, I planned a night out with my closest friends. A bachelorette party he never wanted and I never should have thrown. At first, it was harmless. We laughed, toasted to old memories, danced a little. But the drinks kept coming, and the line between fun and recklessness blurred. As the hours passed, my inhibitions faded, and so did the memory of the man I claimed to love. The further the night spiraled, the more I convinced myself that I deserved this brief escape, that the person I became in that moment wasn't really me, just someone acting out under pressure. But that's the cruelest part of betrayal. It's never just one moment. It's the buildup of countless choices, and I made each one, fully aware of what I stood to lose. When the sun rose the next morning, and I finally returned to our apartment, it hit me like a tidal wave. Michael was gone. Not just physically, but in every way that mattered. And as I looked around at the barren space where our memories once lived, I realized he had taken with him not just his things, but the future we were meant to share. And I had no one to blame but myself. Things had gotten wildly out of hand. What began as a few rounds of drinks spiraled into something far darker. We ended up at a friend's place, where someone had hired a stripper as part of the evening's entertainment. It was supposed to be light-hearted, just silly fun. But as the night wore on and inhibitions faded, lines blurred. I remember laughing at his jokes, flirting carelessly, feeling an unfamiliar thrill coursing through me. One thing led to another, and by the time the night ended, I was in his bed. The memories of that night are hazy, fragmented. It felt like I was watching someone else make every reckless choice. When I woke up, disoriented and hungover, the weight of my actions came crashing down. My head ached, my mouth was dry, and my heart was pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with alcohol. I turned instinctively, expecting to see Michael asleep beside me. But he wasn't there. Instead, I was alone in a stranger's bed, surrounded by unfamiliar shadows and the heavy scent of regret. Panic took over. I rushed to find my clothes, hoping if I moved fast enough, maybe I could outrun what I had done. I tried to convince myself that silence would make it disappear. That if I never said it aloud, it would remain unreal. But the truth gnawed at me. I knew I had crossed a line I could never uncross. By the time I got home, the dread had taken root so deeply it felt like I was choking on it. Something was wrong. I could feel it even before opening the door. The apartment was unnaturally quiet. As I stepped inside, the hollow echo of my footsteps confirmed what I feared. Michael was gone. His clothes, his books, our framed photos. All of it had vanished. Room after room, I searched in vain, clinging to some desperate hope that it wasn't what it looked like. But every empty shelf screamed the truth. On the kitchen counter lay a folded piece of paper. Just 5 words. Hope it was worth it. My hands shook as I picked it up, the words burning into me like a brand. Tears spilled freely, blurring everything around me as I sank to the floor. My chest felt tight, like my lungs couldn't draw in air. I had ruined everything. The love we had, the future we were planning, the trust we'd built. All of it destroyed in one night I could barely remember. I called him. Again and again. I sent message after message, but none went through. He had blocked me. On every platform. As if I never existed. The silence was deafening. The door to our life had slammed shut, and I was left staring at it from the outside. The days that followed were a blur of grief and shame. I couldn't eat. Sleep came only in small, restless doses. Friends reached out, but I ignored them. I couldn't face their sympathy or their questions. I couldn't even face my own reflection. How could I explain to anyone what I had done to the man who had given me everything? Just days before, we were planning our next trip, talking about adopting a dog. And now he was gone. Completely. I couldn't stop replaying that night in my head. Every laugh, every touch, every mistake. I wanted to rewind time, to scream at myself to stop. But the past is cruel that way. It never gives back what it takes. Eventually, when I was able to stand again without breaking, I reached out to Chris, Michael's closest friend. I asked where he was, if he was okay, if there was any way I could speak to him. Chris's reply was sharp and final. Michael doesn't want to hear from you. Don't reach out again. That was it. No more hoping. No more begging. Just a bitter ending I had carved with my own hands. Months passed. The apartment felt like a shell. Half empty and lifeless. I walked through it like a ghost, haunted by the memories of what we'd shared. Therapy came after that. Dr. Sarah was patient, thoughtful. She didn't judge. She asked questions that cut deep and encouraged me to write things down, not to excuse what I'd done, but to make sense of it. At first, I resisted. Writing meant revisiting it all, peeling back the layers I wanted to keep buried. But slowly, she helped me understand that my betrayal wasn't just about a drunken night. It was the culmination of things I hadn't faced, in myself, in our relationship, in my own insecurities. It didn't absolve me. Nothing ever could. But putting the truth on paper made it real. And with that reality came something close to accountability. A chance to stop running and, maybe one day, learn how to live with what I'd done.